I am the supreme elder of the Azure Mist Immortal sect. I have been in secluded cultivation for 100 years, just to break through to the legendary Immortal Emperor realm. But I have never been able to break through. Later, by chance, I learned that the current Immortal Emperor and Empress divorced, and she was awarded half of his cultivation. What? Divorce and get half the cultivation? Are you saying there's a pseudo-immortal emperor who can't fight and an immortal emperor whose strength is severely damaged? Ha ha ha! The chance to become emperor is right before my eyes. Why? What? A roar exploded from the center of the smoke and dust. I, Xuanji, the supreme elder of the Azure Mist Immortal sect, stood disheveled and red-eyed amidst the ruins. The surging spiritual power around me boiled like water, but it was always blocked by an invisible, indestructible barrier, the gate of the immortal emperor. 100 years of sitting in silence, exhausting my energy and consuming the treasures accumulated by the sect over countless years, all ended in failure. The legendary immortal emperor realm was like a reflection in a mirror, visible but untouchable. Overwhelming anger, mixed with deep-seated unwillingness, almost burned away my sanity. Am I destined to never step into the immortal emperor realm in this life? I looked at the cave dwelling and sighed. My lifespan is nearing its end, and if I can't find a way to break through to the immortal emperor realm, I may really die. Just then, a powerful pressure descended from beyond the heavens without warning. This pressure was grand and righteous, but it carried an inexplicable sense of hollowness and sharpness, like a newly sharpened sword, its edge exposed, but lacking the deep foundation of an ancient sword. Although the pressure was shallow, I could clearly feel it. This was the legendary pressure belonging to the immortal emperor realm. Could it be Xiao Hao descending upon the Azure Mist Immortal sect? I frowned inwardly. Xiao Hao is the only immortal emperor now, and the Azure Mist Immortal sect is dependent on the Xiao Hao immortal emperor, so it's indeed possible that Xiao Hao has descended. I didn't dare to be careless, and quickly walked toward the direction of the aura. That was an immortal emperor, one of the strongest in the world. But when I arrived, I was stunned by the figure suspended in the sky above the Azure Mist Immortal sect. The person in the sky was not Xiao Hao, but a woman. She was wearing a beautiful palace dress, its hem trailing on the ground, shimmering with light. With each step she took, a golden lotus of the Tao emerged in the void beneath her feet. The Tao rhythm flowed, and a unique fragrance filled the air. Her face was stunningly beautiful, but her eyes carried a condescending gaze and a trace of not-so-well-hidden smugness. Moreover, the immortal emperor-level aura was emanating from her. Although it was superficial, it was indeed a genuine immortal emperor pressure. As a quasi-immortal emperor with exhausted immortal essence, I was extremely sensitive to this aura, and I also recognized the woman. Her name was Han Mingyao. She was Xiao Hao immortal emperor's wife, famous for her beauty and supposedly not very talented. Back then, Xiao Hao immortal emperor insisted on marrying this woman of unknown origin, which dumbfounded us quasi-mortal emperors who were affiliated with him. But the current situation was even more shocking than Xiao Hao marrying Han Mingyao. You must know that Han Mingyao was only a small cultivator in the nascent soul realm back then. But now she has become an immortal emperor? Did Xiao Hao do it? That shouldn't be possible. Even Xiao Hao, the immortal emperor, couldn't create an immortal emperor. Even if he could use resources to pile it up, it would be almost impossible to pile up an immortal emperor with Han Mingyao's talent. Unless there was some heaven-defying opportunity that allowed her to directly advance to immortal emperor. Thinking of this, the greed in my eyes could no longer be hidden. This was an opportunity that could allow one to advance to immortal emperor. Even if it meant offending Xiao Hao, I would definitely snatch it. Just as I was thinking about how to obtain this opportunity, a voice came from the side. Yankee Grits Master. I looked back and realized that it was a disciple I once accepted. I looked him up and down, and then remembered that he seemed to be one of my disciples. Although I could hardly remember which disciple he was, it didn't stop me from asking questions. I nodded to him, then pointed to Han Mingyao in the sky and asked, "What's going on up there? Isn't Han Mingyao Xiao Hao's wife? Isn't our azure, mist immortal sect under Xiao Hao? Why is this Han Mingyao asking the azure mist immortal sect to submit to her?" This, Yang Qi scratched his head as if thinking about how to tell me. I sighed. "Just tell your teacher everything that happened." "Yes." Yang Qi bowed to me, then said, "Reporting to Master. This is what happened." Yang Qi followed my gaze, and an incredible and strange look appeared on his face. He lowered his voice and said, "Master, this matter is shocking. According to rumors, when Xiao Hao, immortal emperor, married Han Mingyao, he used his own emperor blood as a guide to sign an extremely harsh, codestined heavenly Tao contract, intending to share his lifespan and never be separated. But who knew? Who knew that Han Mingyao used some method some time ago to forcibly tear this contract unilaterally? Tear the heavenly Tao contract. My pupils shrank. Such backlash would either kill you or destroy all your cultivation. Exactly. Yang Qi's tone was filled with a hint of incredible sigh. The contract was torn, and the laws of the heavenly Tao backlashed, which should have been borne by both parties. But that Han Mingyao seemed to have been prepared for a long time. She didn't know what kind of secret treasure or secret technique she used, but she transferred most of the backlash to Xiao Hao, immortal emperor. At the same time, taking advantage of the loopholes in the heavenly Tao created when the contract was torn, she forcibly seized and divided nearly half of the cultivation foundation of Xiao Hao, immortal emperor. Taking this opportunity, she forcibly crossed the immortal emperor tribulation. Although her realm is superficial and her foundation is completely lacking, she does have the spiritual power and pressure of an immortal emperor. And later, because she divorced Xiao Hao, immortal emperor, she wanted to cultivate her own subordinates. She took a fancy to the azure mist immortal sect, which previously belonged to Xiao Hao, immortal emperor, and that's how it happened. Divorced, divided half of his cultivation. I was stunned when I heard this, and then an uncontrollable ecstasy surged out. So that's how it is. Han Mingyao obtained the cultivation of the immortal emperor realm in this way. Then, she is just a pseudo-immortal emperor with only the realm and no combat skills? Isn't this a living, top-grade cauldron at the immortal emperor level, and a high-level secret treasure that can obtain cultivation from the immortal emperor? Little Han Mingyao, you can't grasp this opportunity. Let this venerable one help you digest it. The greed and determination in my eyes were no longer concealed. I looked at Han Mingyao with burning eyes, as if looking at a rare treasure, a key that could help me push open the gate of the immortal emperor. At this moment, Han Mingyao had already landed from the clouds and stood in the square in front of the sect's main hall. The current sect master of the azure mist immortal sect, my grand disciple generation, was leading a group of elders and disciples, their faces panicked and respectful. I restrained the aura around me, took one step, and instantly appeared in front of the main hall. I saw Han Mingyao with an arrogant expression, instructing the sect master and others. This emperor has newly advanced to the immortal emperor realm and needs to rebuild the Yaoqi immortal palace. You azure mist immortal sect, since you are attached to, well, the former Xiao Hao, you should do your best. I give you 3 months to gather all the resources on this list and send them to this emperor's newly opened Tao field. She casually threw out a jade slip, her tone unquestionable. The sect master took the jade slip, scanned it with his divine sense, and his face instantly turned pale. Cold sweat dripped down. Dream Yao, immortal emperor. The resources on this list are almost the accumulation of my azure mist immortal sect for thousands of years. If they're all taken out, the sect's foundation will be shaken, and the disciples will have nothing to continue their cultivation. Please, immortal emperor, be lenient. Han Mingyao's phoenix eyes turned cold, and the superficial but vast immortal emperor pressure around her suddenly increased. pressing down on the sect master like a mountain. So what? This venerable is an immortal emperor. How dare you defy this emperor's orders? The sect master was forced back by the pressure. His chi and blood surged, and he was about to kneel down, his face full of struggle and despair. Just then, I slowly stepped forward, my voice calm, but carrying an invisible force, instantly dissolving Han Mingyao's aggressive pressure into nothingness. Then I bowed to Lu Ruyin and respectfully said, "It is our honor to build an immortal palace for the immortal emperor. On behalf of the Azure Mist Immortal sect, I am willing to take the sect up and down and respectfully abide by the Dream Yao Immortal Emperor's decree." The sect master and the elders were stunned and looked at me in astonishment. Han Mingyao also frowned slightly. Her gaze fell on me, and then she felt the peak quasi-immortal emperor cultivation in my body. A hint of doubt flashed in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by the arrogance of a newly promoted immortal emperor. "Oh, who are you? You are much more sensible than your sect master." I smiled. "I am Li Huang, the supreme elder of the Azure Mist Immortal sect. Greetings, immortal emperor." Han Mingyao smiled with satisfaction. "You are indeed sensible. Thank you for immortal emperor's appreciation." I continued respectfully, then changed the subject. "However, these resources are, after all, a huge amount, and we need to give our sect some time to prepare. Don't you think?" Han Mingyao lowered her head and thought about it, and found that it was indeed the case. Then she nodded. "Okay, this emperor will give you 3 days. You must gather the things for this emperor within 3 days. 3 days, this." The sect master on the side wanted to say something, but I stopped him with a wave of my hand. I shook my head at him. I said to Lu Ruyin, "We will obey the immortal emperor's decree. We will definitely gather the supplies and give them to the immortal emperor in 3 days." Then I created a jade token out of thin air and handed it to Han Mingyao. "Immortal emperor, this is the sect master token of our sect. Please accept it. The entire sect and I respect the Han Mingyao immortal emperor." Han Mingyao took the jade token and looked at it a few times. "Very good. Li Huang, you are very good." She nodded slightly, her tone approving. "When this emperor's Yaoqi immortal palace is completed, I can grant you an elder position and enjoy the blessings of the immortal emperor's Dao lineage. Thank you for the immortal emperor's grace." I bowed again, my posture very low. For my grand plan, what does it matter to swallow my pride for a while? In that case, this emperor will wait for the resources you offer on the top of the Cloud Sky mountain range in the eastern region in 3 days. Han Mingyao was complacent, and the golden lotus of the Tao reappeared under her feet, carrying her as she was about to rise up, preparing to leave. The immortal emperor's pressure spread out, still causing the surrounding space to vibrate slightly, but it always gave people a sense of being strong on the outside but weak on the inside. "Respectfully send off the immortal emperor." I bowed again in the direction of Han Mingyao's departure. But as soon as Han Mingyao was far away, the expression on my face suddenly changed from respect to gloomy. "Oomph, you dare to call yourself an immortal emperor? Supreme Elder, what do you mean by this?" The one who spoke was the current sect master of the Azure Mist Immortal sect, Ling Yunzi, who was considered to be my grand disciple generation. His face was flushed red at the moment, and he held the jade slip containing the astronomical resource list tightly in his hand, his fingers turning white from the force. "That is the foundation of our sect for thousands of years. 3 days? Not to mention 3 days. Even 30 years will be difficult to gather without hurting the foundation of the sect. How did you agree to it? And gave her that jade token?" Ling Yunzi became more and more anxious. "That is not the sect master token at all. That is just an ordinary spiritual jade token that you usually use to engrave array runes. If it is discovered, our Azure Mist Immortal sect will be destroyed in an instant." The surrounding elders also gathered around, although they did not dare to directly question as Ling Yunzi did. Their eyes were full of incomprehension and panic. They were affiliated with Xiao Hao Immortal Emperor, and although they needed to make offerings, at least the order was orderly. When had they ever been subjected to such near-robbery extortion? Moreover, the target was that unstable and suspicious Dream Yao Immortal Emperor. I slowly turn around, the chilling smile on my face silencing Ling Yunzi and the other elders. The peak quasi-mortal emperor pressure I had deliberately suppressed in front of Han Mingyao now spread like an invisible tide. Though not as vast as an immortal emperor's, it was solid, heavy, and carried the biting aura of slaughter honed from 100 years of solitary meditation, instantly making it difficult for everyone to breathe. A catastrophe? I scoffed, my gaze sweeping over everyone, finally landing on the jade slip in Ling Yunzi's hand. Is she, Han Mingyao, worthy? Supreme Elder, do you mean? Ling Yunzi seemed to grasp something, but remained confused. Fools! I snorted coldly, my voice not loud, but like ice piercing their souls. Do you really think this old one was groveling before her? I reached out, and the jade slip flew into my hand. A brief scan with my divine sense confirmed that the various heavenly treasures and spiritual vein crystals listed were indeed enough to empty the coffers of any top-tier sect. She, Han Mingyao, is nothing more than a thief who stole half of Xiao Hao's cultivation through conspiracy and trickery, possessing the spiritual power of an immortal emperor, but lacking the corresponding realm, comprehension of the Tao, and divine abilities. An utter, fake immortal emperor. My voice was filled with undisguised contempt and greed. In her eyes, my azure Empyrean immortal sect is a fat piece of meat. But in this old one's eyes, she is that once-in-a-millennium opportunity. Everyone was horrified by these words. I continued, my tone sinister. The 3-day deadline is merely a delaying tactic. That jade token is no ordinary spiritual jade token. Inscribed upon it is the soul-chasing, spirit-locking seal, etched with the power of my primordial divine soul. As long as she carries it, her whereabouts and spiritual fluctuations are entirely within my grasp. Unless she possesses true immortal emperor-level divine soul attainments, it will be nearly impossible for her to detect. Ling Yunzi gasped. Soul-chasing, spirit-locking seal? Supreme Elder, you intend to... Indeed, a fierce light flashed in my eyes. Doesn't she want resources? Good. This old one will personally deliver them to her. I will even bestow upon her the sect's supreme Tao Emperor weapon as a reward, but whether she can accept it is another matter entirely. Without paying any further attention to the stunned crowd, I headed toward the sect's forbidden area. There, hidden, was the sect's treasure, the supreme Tao Emperor weapon, the heaven-slaying lightning blast. It was said that the founding ancestor of the Azure Empyrean Immortal sect had acquired this special object from an extraterrestrial demon, and after the ancestor strengthened it, it became what it is now. I released its seal and placed it into my personal dimension, then sped towards the jade token that I released. This couldn't be delayed. If such a good medicinal ingredient were stolen by someone else, it would be a huge loss. Following the clear mark in my soul, I transformed into an invisible stream of light, tearing through layers of space, and sped towards the Cloud Heaven Mountain Range in the Eastern Territory. In my hand, the personal dimension that contained the heaven-slaying lightning blast seemed to be slightly heating up, the destructive energy within causing my heart, dormant for 100 years, to throb faintly. Han Mingyao, this unexpectedly obtained opportunity, I would absolutely not allow to be lost. At the summit of the Cloud Heaven Mountain Range, shrouded in swirling clouds, Han Mingyao was sitting cross-legged on a piece of azure jade platform outside a crudely constructed temporary cave dwelling, seemingly trying hard to consolidate her shaky realm. The immortal emperor-level spiritual power around her surged like an uncontrolled tide, and even the Tao principles that leaked out seemed chaotic and weak. I appeared silently outside the cave dwelling, without deliberately concealing my aura. Almost the moment I appeared, Han Mingyao abruptly opened her eyes, a hint of surprise flashing through them. but even more so a sense of offended anger. She had clearly sensed my arrival and recognized me. Li Wuwang. Her willow eyebrows shot up, her tone carrying a condescending interrogation. The 3-day period is not yet up. Who allowed you to trespass upon this emperor's quiet cultivation ground? Have the resources been prepared? The majestic but hollow, immortal emperor pressure emanating from her body spread out once more, attempting to crush me as it had previously intimidated Ling Yunzi. If it were an ordinary quasi-immortal emperor, their mind would have already wavered under this level of suppression. Unfortunately, I am no ordinary quasi-immortal emperor. I am a peak existence who had touched the threshold of the immortal emperor realm for 100 years. Only one step away, even half a foot already within. Her pressure felt to me like rice porridge mixed with sand, impressive in appearance only. My face was expressionless, devoid of both the previous respect and any trace of greed, only a chilling indifference, as if looking at a stone about to be crushed. Faced with her questioning, I couldn't even bother to feign interest in replying. The moment her words fell, the power that had been secretly brewing to its extreme since before my appearance erupted. Without warning, without any indication, I formed a sword with my fingers, the azure Empyrean immortal essence within my body, dormant for 100 years and already perfected, transformed into an extremely condensed, deep blue sword energy that almost sliced open the void. As the sword energy appeared, heaven and earth lost their color. The surrounding clouds were instantly swept away, and even the light seemed to be devoured. This sword was the sword of slaughter I had honed from 100 years of solitary meditation and despair, named annihilation. My thinking was very simple. I didn't know if she really had no fighting ability at all, so the best thing to do was to kill her immediately before she could make a move. The anger on Han Mingyao's face was instantly replaced by disbelief and horror. She had never expected that I, this sensible quasi-immortal emperor in her eyes, would dare to attack her, an immortal emperor. Even more unexpectedly, my attack was so decisive and so lethal. The speed of the deep blue sword energy was extremely fast, surpassing the transmission of thought. In a hurried moment, Han Mingyao only had time to let out a shriek, and the vast immortal emperor-level spiritual power around her instinctively surged out, forming a colorful protective immortal light in front of her. This immortal light looked gorgeous and dazzling, containing the energy level of an immortal emperor, but its structure was loose and chaotic, without any order, completely relying on the brute force accumulation of power. The annihilation sword energy effortlessly tore through the seemingly powerful, colorful, immortal light. Although there was a difference in the level of power, the difference in realm, comprehension of the Tao, and the application of power was fully manifested at this moment. The sword energy pierced through the immortal light and struck Han Mingyao's chest heavily. Blood instantly spurted out from her gorgeous palace-style immortal dress. She let out a miserable scream, and her whole person flew out like a kite with a broken string, heavily crashing into the mountain wall behind her, causing the entire mountain to shake violently and countless huge cracks to appear. She collapsed on the ground, a terrible sword wound on her chest almost piercing her through, her originally beautiful face distorted by pain and shock, her eyes filled with confusion, fear, and a dazed expression as if she had been completely stunned. She seemed completely unable to understand why she was already an immortal emperor, yet she couldn't even withstand a single sword from a quasi-immortal emperor. I took a step forward, my figure appearing before her like a ghost, condescendingly looking down at her. Only at this moment did I slowly open my mouth, my voice cold and devoid of emotion. Who told you I was here to deliver resources? You ant! How dare you injure my emperor's body? She shrieked, no longer in the tone of false majesty she had put on before, but with a hint of hysteria. The immortal emperor level, vast as the sea, spiritual power finally was no longer just a pressure, but erupted from her body like an uncontrolled galaxy. The entire main peak of the Cloud Heaven Mountain Range, under this pure, brute force spiritual power eruption, was instantly reduced to dust from the mountainside upwards. Boulders, ancient trees, spiritual energy, and even space itself were crushed, thrown away, and torn apart by this reckless power. A huge opening was torn in the sky, revealing the chaotic void turbulence behind it. This was a venting of pure power, without any skill, but carrying an absolute suppression of realm. Below the immortal emperor, all our ants, this was not an exaggeration. Just this eruption of spiritual power alone would be enough to severely injure or even kill any quasi-immortal emperor. I had already anticipated that she would react like this. The moment her spiritual power erupted, I did not choose to confront it head-on. The annihilation sword intent was withdrawn, and my figure was like a ghost, shuttling through the shattered space fragments and violent energy turbulence. My speed was pushed to the extreme, each step landing on the relatively weak nodes of the spiritual power tide, like a petrel in a storm, dangerously but accurately avoiding the most deadly impact. But the range of the immortal emperor's spiritual power was too wide, and the power too strong. Even though my movement technique was superb, I was still swept by several stray energy torrents. Puff! A sweetness rose in my throat. I forced myself to swallow the reverse blood, and the protective immortal light flickered violently, dimming. The gap between the peak quasi-immortal emperor and the true immortal emperor was undoubtedly revealed at this moment. If her foundation had not been so unstable and her control of power so crude, that wave of eruption would have been enough to seriously injure me. Han Mingyao looked like a madwoman, waving her hands wildly. She didn't understand any profound divine abilities at all, but relying on her instinct, she condensed her vast spiritual power into rainbow-colored giant palms and light pillars spanning the sky, like wielding heaven and earth hammers, madly smashing down in my direction. Each strike contained the power to shatter stars, and where it passed, the space collapsed into patches, forming terrifying black hole vortexes. The terrain of the surrounding tens of thousands of miles around the Cloud Heaven Mountain Range was completely changed under this chaotic bombardment. Rivers were cut off, and the earth sank as if the end of the world had arrived. My eyes were as cold as iron, and my heart was unwavering. Her attacks seemed to be world-shattering, but in fact, they were full of loopholes. The power was scattered, the trajectory was straightforward, and there was a lack of change. Azure Lotus Step, illusory destruction. I let out a low roar, and my figure suddenly split into thousands of phantoms, each carrying my true aura, shuttling through the sky full of palm shadows and light pillars. Boom! 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 Phantoms were annihilated by terrifying power, but my true body was like a slippery fish, always able to avoid the frontal impact at the last moment. Occasionally, when there was an unavoidable impact, I would use the Annihilation Sword energy or an extremely condensed fist print to resist it head-on. Although I was shaken with churning blood, it never injured the root. I was getting closer, withstanding the immortal Emperor-level bombardment, like a lone boat going against the current and steadily shortening the distance with her. Seeing that I was not only not dead, but getting closer and closer, the madness in Han Mingyao's eyes became even more intense and was mixed with a hint of panic. She suddenly clasped her hands together. The rainbow-colored immortal light around her boiled, converging into a destructive torrent more than 100 feet in diameter, like a rushing galaxy, surging towards me. This was her full-strength strike in anger, almost draining most of the spiritual power around her, and its momentum was extremely frightening. Facing this unavoidable strike, a flash of fierce color finally appeared in my eyes. Now, the right hand, which had been hidden in my sleeve, suddenly stretched out, and the gap connecting the personal dimension suddenly expanded. I took out the extreme Tao Emperor weapon from the space and carried it on my shoulder. To be honest, after my senior brother, the previous sect master, use this thing. I had always been very curious about what this thing was and why it had to be carried on the shoulder to operate it. I mobilized all the spiritual power in my body, and all the power was poured into this weapon. Then, a heaven-destroying force burst out from the tube, hitting Han Mingyao with one blow. The light gradually dissipated, and the smoke and dust settled slightly. I saw that at the place where Han Mingyao was before, there was a bottomless pit. She herself was lying at the bottom of the pit, looking extremely miserable. The gorgeous palace-style fairy dress had long been tattered, scorched everywhere, and the exposed skin was full of cracks, like a piece of porcelain that was about to break, and Golden Emperor's blood kept oozing from it. Her breath was extremely weak, and a vast, immortal Emperor-level spiritual power around her was like a leaking skin, rapidly dissipating and no longer able to condense. She struggled to raise her head, her eyes filled with extreme resentment, fear, and a dazed look of complete collapse. She opened her mouth, as if trying to say something, but could only cough up large amounts of blood and internal organ fragments. Why? Why am I already an immortal emperor? Her voice was as weak as a mosquito, with a strong sense of unwillingness and incomprehension. I slowly fell from the air, stood at the edge of the giant pit, and looked down at her indifferently. Immortal Emperor? I sneered and walked towards her step by step. Having power but lacking the matching realm and mind is just rootless duckweed, a castle in the air. You don't even know how to use this power effectively. You just squander it like a beast. Such an immortal emperor is only slightly stronger than the strongest quasi-immortal emperor. I walked to her side, squatted down, and looked at her pupils that were shrinking violently because of fear. You can't kill me. She seemed to finally realize that death was approaching and shouted sharply, Xiao Hao. Xiao Hao will not let you go. I have his mark on me. Xiao Hao. I stretched out my hand, and a wisp of ghostly blue light condensed on my fingertips, like the tongue of a poisonous snake, slowly probing towards her brow. You forcibly took half of his cultivation. Do you think he will come to save you? No. He loves me so much, he will definitely come to save me. A frantic struggle flashed in Han Mingyao's eyes, trying to mobilize the remaining power in her body for a final fight. I sneered. I'm naive. Then my fingertip pointed on her brow without any obstruction. Let you become the stepping stone for this old one to become an immortal emperor. No. After an unknown amount of time, a supreme, immortal power rushed straight into the sky from my cave. I finally successfully advanced to the immortal emperor realm with the help of this power. I did not restrain my aura, but completely released it, like throwing a huge rock on a calm lake, declaring to the entire immortal realm, another immortal emperor has been born. Next is, I said softly, then looked up at the sky and slowly spoke Xiao Hao. Once he was the sun and moon hanging high above the 9 heavens, the supreme existence that I could only look up to. I was one of the myriad quasi-immortal emperors under his command. Although I was a grand elder, I still had to watch his face and breathe through his nostrils. But now it's different. I, Li Huowang, am also an immortal emperor. What's more, he was so foolish as to be betrayed by the woman closest to him, losing half of his cultivation base. Is the current Xiao Hao still the supreme powerhouse that overlooks the 3 realms? An immortal emperor backlashed by a furnace vessel, greatly weakened in vitality. A failure who can't even manage his own backyard. A low laugh echoed in the empty cave, full of mockery and greed. Such a waste. Yet he deserves to continue occupying the supreme position of the 3 realms. It's time for someone else to sit in this seat. Han Mingyao's experience was like the clearest warning and the most potent catalyst. In this immortal realm, the law of the jungle is eternal. If I don't fight for it today, I might become another Xiao Hao one day, trampled under the feet of later generations. Instead of waiting for him to recover and come to question me, I might as well strike first. It can eliminate future troubles forever and seize the remaining imperial foundation, perhaps allowing me to go further on the immortal emperor path, even touch that legendary higher realm. With this thought settled, I stepped out of the cave, and my figure appeared above the 9 heavens, overlooking the vast sea of clouds. Found you. A cold light flashed in my eyes, and my figure transformed into a chaotic stream of light tearing through the sky, carrying the boundless aura of a newly advanced immortal emperor, and rushed unabashedly toward the direction of Xiao Hao's divine palace. Since we must fight, there is no need to hide. I want to pull this former supreme being down from the altar under the gaze of all the immortal gods. Let the 3 realms know that the new emperor, Xuanji, should stand. My speed was extremely fast. Traversing the endless starry sky was but a blink of an eye. Along the way, the powerful existences in countless immortal mountains and blessed lands were startled by this undisguised immortal emperor's fighting intent, and they all cast shocked divine thoughts. It's Li Huowang, that old monster from the Azure Blue Immortal sect. He actually succeeded. He's heading straight for Xiao Hao's divine palace? Is he crazy? He dares to challenge immortal emperor Xiao Hao. Challenge? Humph. Haven't you felt that immortal emperor Xiao Hao's aura has been a little off lately? It's said to be related to that immortal emperor Mingyao, the snipe and the clam fight. Let's just watch. Discussion abondée, suspicion, choc, schadenfreude. Various divine thoughts intertwined, but I turned a deaf ear. My only goal was Xiao Hao's divine palace. Ahead, the immortal energy became more and more concentrated, and the laws became more and more stable. A palace complex that could not be described in words for its grandeur and splendor appeared at the end of the field of vision. It floated above the 9 heavens, as if it were the center of the entire immortal realm, with hundreds of millions of stars revolving around it. There was Xiao Hao's dojo, the core of power that ruled the immortal realm. However, the immortal light surrounding this divine palace at this moment seemed to be a bit dimmer than I remembered, faintly revealing a weakness that was strong on the outside but empty on the inside. I stopped in the void 10,000 miles outside the divine palace, stood with my hands behind my back, and my voice like thunder from the 9 heavens rolled out, shaking the defensive immortal array around the entire divine palace to ripple violently. Xiao Hao, an old friend is visiting. Why not come out and meet? The voice contained my newly advanced immortal emperor's supreme majesty and boundless fighting intent, like a challenge letter, slamming heavily into the silent divine palace. After a moment of silence, an equally grand voice, but obviously carrying some irrepressible anger and weakness, boomed out from the deepest part of the divine palace. Xuanji, it's you. On you is the karma of Mengyao's Dao demise. You killed her. Before the voice faded, a figure wearing an imperial robe and a crown, but with an abnormally pale face, stepped out of the divine palace. It was Xiao Hao. The immortal emperor's pressure emanating from his body was still strong, trying to completely suppress me as in the past. But I could clearly perceive the cracks deep within this pressure, the hollowness like a foundation eroded by insects. I met his gaze without fear, but instead showed a sneering cold smile. Killed her. So what? A furnace vessel who stole your cultivation and betrayed you. What's the point of keeping her? I paused, my gaze sweeping over his slightly pale face, and my tone became even more contemptuous. As for you, Xiao Hao, being played by a woman, even being forcibly robbed of half of your imperial foundation. Such a waste. What face do you have to occupy this supreme position? You. Xiao Hao was furious, his body trembling slightly in anger, and the immortal power around him went out of control, causing the surrounding space to crumble inch by inch. His biggest scar was thus brutally exposed by me. Today, I slowly raised my hand, chaotic immortal power gathered in my palm, causing the resonance of the heavens and laws, my voice icy cold, announcing my ultimate goal. I will take the remaining half of your cultivation, and by the way, take over your supreme position of the 3 realms. A great battle was about to break out. Xiao Hao was indeed an old immortal emperor, His combat power was not on the same level as Han Mingyao at all. Only on him could I truly feel the pressure of an immortal emperor. We fought in darkness and chaos, and even the great Tao was destroyed. Finally, after an unknown amount of time, a winner was decided. I defeated Xiao Hao with an extremely small advantage. Cough, cough, cough. He coughed violently, each cough carrying pieces of internal organs and the annihilation of Tao principles. He struggled to raise his head. Those eyes that once contained the sun, moon, and stars, overlooking all living beings, now only contained endless grayness and a hint of bitterness. Xuanji, you. His voice was hoarse and dry. I didn't expect that the one who would ultimately end me would be you. I walked closer slowly, my footsteps stepping on the ripples in the void, emitting the bell of death. Looking down at this former supreme being, it wasn't me who ended you. My voice was calm. It was your own stupidity and arrogance. It was your misjudgment of people, letting the wolf into the house. It was your flawed Tao heart that gave me opportunity. A violent fluctuation flashed in Xiao Hao's eyes. Was it regret? Was it unwillingness? Perhaps both. He opened his mouth, wanting to retort, but ultimately turned into a long sigh with blood clots. The winner is king, the loser is villain. I have nothing to say. He closed his eyes, as if resigned to his fate, but the remaining imperial immortal essence in his body began to gather and compress at an abnormal speed, and a destructive aura of wanting to perish with the enemy suddenly rose. He wanted to self-detonate his imperial body, pull me to perish together. Stubborn. A cold light burst out in my eyes. I had already expected him to make this move. In the instant before his imperial core was about to completely detonate, I pointed my fingers like a sword, with the chaotic imperial rules that I had just comprehended, but were more domineering and fierce, wrapped around the fingertips, transforming into an invisible and immaterial finger wind that instantly cut off karma and annihilated the divine soul, pointing towards his brow. Annihilation, Emperor, execution. The finger wind silently disappeared into Xiao Hao's brow. His body stiffened suddenly, and the last bit of spirit in his eyes instantly dimmed and dissipated. This self-detonating immortal essence that had been condensed to the extreme, as if it had lost its source, collapsed, turning into the purest heaven and earth spiritual energy, returning to the universe. He maintained a half-kneeling posture, but his aura had completely died out. An old immortal emperor who had ruled the immortal realm for countless years had thus perished. I reached out and grabbed, and from Xiao Hao's lifeless imperial body, a ball of the purest original imperial energy, containing his lifelong cultivation insights and the remaining half of his imperial foundation, was forcibly stripped out by me, transforming into a fist-sized ball of light, falling into my palm. Feeling the vast, star-like power in the ball of light, a hint of heat finally flashed in my eyes. Without the slightest hesitation, I opened my mouth like a whale swallowing the heavens and the earth, and swallowed this ball of original imperial energy, which contained all of Xiao Hao's essence in one gulp. A torrent of energy 10 times or 100 times more violent than when I refined Han Mingyao exploded in my body in an instant. This time, it was no longer a simple accumulation of spiritual power, but included Xiao Hao's profound understanding of the laws of heaven and earth, his unique insights into the immortal emperor realm. It was a true fusion of Tao and power. My body seemed to be bursting with this force. Every cell was wailing and reborn, and my soul was constantly ascending to a higher dimension in the tearing and cohesion. The chaotic immortal light surrounding me became more and more concentrated, and the realm that was originally slightly weak due to the new advancement became solid, thick, and unfathomable at a speed visible to the naked eye. I sat cross-legged in the void, using my own imperial Tao as a furnace, frantically refining and absorbing Xiao Hao's imperial foundation. The surrounding shattered stars, scattered immortal energy, and even the remnants of Xiao Hao's fallen imperial body were all transformed into pure energy to supplement me under this terrifying, devouring force. Time lost its meaning at this moment. I don't know how long it has passed, maybe a moment, maybe 10,000 years. When I opened my eyes again, two substantial chaotic divine lights shot out from my eyes, piercing through the endless void, not knowing where they extended to. The aura around my body was restrained, but seemed to be integrated with the entire immortal realm. With every gesture, it could trigger the resonance of the heavens and the Tao. Feeling the vast power in my body that far surpassed that of an ordinary immortal emperor, a sense of absolute control. Above and below, I alone am supreme, arose spontaneously. I, Li Huang, was now the new emperor, truly standing at the pinnacle of the immortal realm. My gaze swept over the Xiao Hao divine palace below, which had become ruins, and those Xiao Hao's old subordinates, and probing divine thoughts from all sides who were shivering in the distant starry sky, not daring to approach. I slowly got up. My voice was not loud, but clearly spread to every corner of the immortal realm, with unquestionable majesty and the power of law. Xiao Hao is unprincipled and has been executed. From today onwards, the immortal realm will be ruled by this emperor. Those who obey me will prosper. Those who defy me, will die.